Welcome to Carrickfergus Vineyard, a place of hope where lives are changing. We're a church in the heart of Carrickfergus, passionate about seeing people's lives changed by the love of Jesus. The following message was given at one of our Sunday services.
Well, welcome back, everyone. It's just been so lovely to worship with you all. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I've just got a couple of bits prepared just to speak into your lives. My name's Owen. If we haven't met before, I've recently just became the new youth coordinator, so that's exciting. Yeah. Gosh, who let that happen? Anyway. So I want to talk today about what life to the very fullest looks like, and some of you in the room feel like you're maybe experiencing that. Maybe you've known Jesus and have been following Jesus for a long time. Some of you maybe have been following Jesus, but you don't think you're quite experiencing that yet. And some of you maybe have never made a decision to follow Jesus. What I want to say to you all is that this time will be very applicable to your lives. So I'm going to invite my assistant to come up. Hope, can you come up, please? Give Hope a round of applause. And Hope was just going to read John 10 out for us.
Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. The Jews who heard these words were again divided. Many of them said, he is demon-possessed and raving mad. Why listen to him? But others said, these are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind?
Beautiful. Thank you, Hope. So this passage, it holds a really famous Bible verse that probably all of you, or maybe most of you, have heard. It says John 10:10, which says, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that you may have life, and life to the full. And I absolutely love this verse and this passage as a whole, but a lot of the time we as Christians tend to just take one part of the story, and I'll pick that out. I'll put that in my Instagram bio. I'll put that as my screensaver. And I think a lot of the time we do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we just take that as the verse and don't look deeper into the scriptures, we miss out on the true invitation that is life to the full. And God quite clearly states that we are to experience in that, and that's great. When you look at this passage, if we're honest, when you break it down, a lot of our lives don't fully represent this. So the question really is, what does true life to the full look like? A lot of people are probably looking for this big answer and this list of things like possessions, like a BMW, money, a house, nice jewelry, clothes, or you may be looking at experiences like living in Australia, a holiday to the Maldives, playing for Liverpool. Those are all great things, but truly none of these things will ever satisfy long term. The short answer to living a life that is full is when God speaks, you do what he says. that is true maturity. Not saying and doing all the things that appear to be the right thing. And when I look at the church, probably in the UK and America, we kind of see a lot of people who are nice, they're steady, and they live ordinary lives, but that is okay, but it's also not the goal. The goal is to follow Jesus and embrace him with his whole character. When we learn to follow Jesus' voice, we don't just change from the outside and go from wearing Nike Air Max to wearing Birkenstocks. I've lost half the room on that. But we don't just go from wearing like these nice trainers that some people wear, but also go to Birkenstocks, like these really weird like clogs. I don't know why everyone wears them. But that is kind of a stereotype we have, that Christians dress and look like that. But when we see that, what I want to see is the Jesus that we know changing us from the inside, not everything on the outside. I just pray that you would know that. Learning how to follow Jesus is all about learning how to follow his voice and learning how to see how he sees. How do we fully submit to him? Like I said, we need to follow and know his voice well. We need to really listen. To help give you an example, there's probably an individual in all your lives who has like this really recognizable voice. Like you hear them before you see them. And one of mine is my Uncle Pete, who's also my boss now at the Blue Houses. And he has this like really recognizable voice that he'll come up to me and he'll be like, yeah. Or he'd be like, he does this other thing where he comes into a room now and he's like, guys, hi guys. And it's like, he's got one of these like really recognizable voices. He's a real introvert at heart, but he really loves people. And he's one of the voices in my life that I probably would never actually ignore. He's someone in my life who I've built such a good relationship with. We've laughed, we have cried, and we've prayed together. When we are with each other, I would say I'm pretty engaged. My desire is that you and I would be like this with the Father. You and I would be like this with God, that we would know his voice so well, that we would build such a strong relationship with him that when we hear him speak, we obey and we follow his lead and guidance. In this passage, it clearly describes us as sheep, us as sheep. We need to be like sheep. But these sheep, not lost sheep. We need to be sheep who follow the good shepherd. And if you've ever spent time or learnt about sheep, you will know very quickly that they are really dumb. They're really stupid. And I'm not saying any of you are really dumb and really stupid, but Jesus compares us to them. And you may think that's so harsh, but when you look at their behavior and the way they move throughout the world, we're not too much different. Like if you did an IQ test on a human and a sheep, I think the human would win. But our behavior, sometimes we connect and we move throughout the world and respond to what's around us. We aren't so different to sheep. But Jesus is talking about his own sheep, God's people, which if you have given your life to Jesus before, this is your goal. This is what God calls us into when he says, you are to experience life to the full. Verse 4, when he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. These sheep, they know the shepherd's voice, and they do not follow other voices. That's our goal. Another thing that's similar, sheep follow others blindly. Our lives at times, we follow others so blindly. I remember I was in school, I was about 14, and I had to go to the pastoral office and have a meeting with a teacher called Miss Kane. Some of you who go to Carrickfergus will know her. And I was going through a really tough time at school. I was kind of either hyper off the walls or really sleepy. A lot of ADHD traits there. But I really, really struggled in class. And so this teacher was trying to seek me out before I was in her pastoral office. And she was trying to find me during break and lunchtime. But literally every time I heard rumblings or seen her, I was gone. I just ran away. And all my mates would follow me. But then I got the phone call. Well, my teacher got the phone call during English class. And she goes, Owen, can you go down to Miss Keane's office? And I'm like, what have I done? Why? And so I go down, and she's actually like really kind and really understanding to me. But what also happens is she asks, Owen, like, why when like I try to come find you at break and lunchtime, you just run away and like all your mates are just running away? And like 14-year-old me, not even a split second, just like, I don't know. Don't know why I do that. And then, like, I'm 14 at this point, I'm not really following Jesus. She says a sentence or a question, what are you, like sheep? And like, my heart sunk at that point. I was like, yeah, that's me. I did this for most of my teenage life, and I'll tell you, I followed some people where the consequences were really bad. But the harder thing that I missed out on was Jesus inviting me to a life to the full. If I had just followed his voice and what he was calling out to me, I would have experienced life to the full. That's way more significant than going where consequences are bad. Even us as Christians, we also, all the time, we end up in different places because we weren't listening to God's voice, inviting us into the greater story. Sometimes we go to places because that is where all the others are going. Why do we go through Jesus' gate? Because his way is better. It's better than what the world offers. He offers redemption for us all by dying on the cross and paying that significant price for all of us. The challenge that we all carry is more often than not, are we choosing other voices, other fields, other directions, when Jesus is always calling us out to go through his gate? Are we following the thieves and the robbers? John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and life to the full. Jesus offers us this, but how do we know this? I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd laid down his life for the sheep, and Jesus completed it, and he gives us life to the full. When we follow him, we have true freedom. We don't have counterfeit, we have true freedom. We don't just stay where we are or follow the thieves and robbers. They can't handle all of your baggage. They can't take care of you, and they cannot give you a full life. Another similarity, sheep settle for less. When sheep are thirsty, they stop at the dirty puddle in front of them, even if there is a perfectly clean puddle a few feet away. Sheep become content with filth, and they also smell really bad. I'm not saying any of you in this room smell really bad, by the way, or like drink from dirty puddles. But what's clear here is the sheep don't know what's best for them. That's why we need Jesus. We are wired for dependency, yet the world at the moment is telling us that we need to be independent. We need to be dependent on God. He cleans our mess up. He gives us healthy water to drink from. He provides us with what we truly need. Jesus shows greater things. He shows us a life full of freedom, not with areas that smell or are a mess. Psalm 23:1, another famous Bible verse. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. This is a perfect image of how he leads us. It says he makes in that passage because we as humans don't always know what is best for us. And so we depend on the shepherd in a world that says we should be independent. We shouldn't settle for less, but we should follow the God that has so much more for us all. Lastly, sheep are valuable. In Jesus' time, sheep were treated as valuable possessions. If you were an owner of lots of sheep, you were a rich man. And the shepherds in biblical times would sacrifice so much because they cared so much for their flock. How much more precious are you than a sheep? You're so much more precious. So much so that Jesus paid that sacrifice because you are so worth it. You are so valued. And Jesus says here in verse 14, I am the good shepherd. He doesn't say I'm a bad or an average shepherd, but the good one. Why? Because the bad shepherd wouldn't even go out looking for the sheep. He wouldn't even defend them. The average shepherd would pay a wee bit of a price and maybe go look for you. But if he thinks it's a lost cause, he's not going. But Jesus is the good one. The one that lays his life down for you, for me. Because he sees you as priceless. That's good news. He sees you as priceless. And he sees you as one of his sons or daughters. You are so valued.
Thanks for listening to the Carrickfergus Vineyard podcast. If you'd like to find out more about our church, please visit our website, carrickfergusvineyard.org.